Well, there you have it. Mzwanele Manyi is out of the ANC. He is joining the African Transformation Movement. He's become a member, and right there he was being welcomed by the group from the African Transformation Movement. And basically over the last few minutes he's been giving his reasons why he's leaving the ANC, saying that it has basically lost its moral compass and basically it now displays all the characteristics of an organization that has been captured by outside forces. So let's unpack it a little bit. I'm joined by political analyst Karima Brown. And Karima, one of my favorite tweets of this week was Troy Martin's screen grabbing a WhatsApp conversation from their ANC branch group, WhatsApp group, basically where it says Mzwanele Manyi left. He's left the WhatsApp group of the ANC. He's joined a new WhatsApp group, the African Transformation Movement. But this is not a new movement, is it?
No, it isn't a new movement, and this is what makes it significant. In fact, I was just looking at the fact that the announcement of this new party was made in Rustenburg. Now, of course, Rustenburg is part of the Northwest, where former Premier and former ANC strongman Supremo Mapelo reigned supreme. In fact, he was the reason why the list conference was derailed. And then, of course, you have also a similar formation in KwaZulu-Natal, a group of people who have said that they've got the blessing of former President Jacob Zuma. And then you have Hlaudi Motsoeneng with his African content movement in the Free State. And I think what we're seeing here is what I would like to refer to as the rise of the outsiders. These were people in the African National Congress, in the inner circle of the Zuma faction. In many ways, the Steer boys, they had to do the dirty work. If you think of someone like Hlaudi Motsoeneng, if you think of someone like Mzwanele Manyi in terms of what came out at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, his intimidation of Ms. Pumla Williams, and of course people like Supremo Mapelo, who used the province essentially to advance a state capture. And these people were very influential. I mean, last year, this time, we were talking about the fact that Mzwanele didn't make it onto the NEC of the ANC. And I remember being there, and he was one of the last people on the floor waiting for those names to be called out. So this party is essentially Plan B of the state capture project under former President Jacob Zuma that wants to access power in the state one way or the other.
But we've got to give him some credit, though, Karima. He's at least consistent in the issues that he's been raising, because if you've been interacting with Mzwanele Manyi over the past few years, for instance, issues to do with the mining charter, that whole concept of once empowered, always empowered, that's been an issue for him, that has bothered him for quite some time, that he has campaigned on. The issues to do with the nationalization of the Reserve Bank, I mean, that's something that he has raised in the past.
Yeah, these are all, of course, the issues that the so-called radical economic transformation faction, which was effectively the narrative for state capture in the African National Congress, put on the table. One of the other issues that Mzwanele Manyi also opposed was the fact that we sign the bill that will make us part of the global banking system dealing with politically exposed persons, for example. You will remember that the bill was halted. President Zuma had to send it back to Parliament, and he led, for example, the Black Business Council to object to this process, saying that black wealth is being policed and they are being treated differently.
I remember that debate,
exactly. Yeah. So a lot of these issues are actually debates that are raging in the African National Congress. What Mzwanele Manyi is saying is that they have lost the debate in the African National Congress on some of these issues, and what they need now is a movement that will take these issues forward. And I think it's interesting that they are based in the provinces that constituted what was referred to as the Premier League faction in the African National Congress.
How much traction does Mzwanele Manyi joining the African Transformation Movement, ATM, how much traction does it give that particular movement? What does it bring?
I think they are banking on two things. They have crunched the numbers. As you know, the African National Congress has been losing support under President Jacob Zuma. Its image suffered terribly. So there are some people in the ANC that believe that the ANC at a national and in certain provinces won't reach the 50% mark. You must also remember the division destroyed the infrastructure of the ANC, so there's no machinery to put into place to run an election campaign. So I think these organizations are hoping that the ANC will fall short of being able to form provincial governments, because remember, we are not voting nationally alone, we're also voting provincially. And they've learned from the EFF essentially what they want to be are kingmakers, because our party representative system allows you to enter the political sphere quite simply and quite easily. You don't have to have that many people voting for you to be able to get a seat. So I think they're hoping to be kingmakers in the province-to-province list and seek rents like the EFF does with the Democratic Alliance in coalition governments. And remember, they don't have access to real businesses. Mzwanele Manyi was a media tycoon. He bought ANN7 and, of course, also from the Guptas. And it costs a lot of money to run a political party. In fact, it costs hundreds of millions of rands. And the key question one must ask is, where are they going to get it? And of course, they're turning to some of the churches to fund them. That is not a new phenomena, but it's going to be interesting to see what kind of relationship they're going to have with groups like the EFF, with groups like Claudia Muan.
Exactly. You preempt where I want to go. And actually, we're on standby, if you just joined us, for an address by the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa commemorating what would have been the 60th birthday of the founding president of the ANC Youth League, Peter Mokaba. So while we're watching that with one eye, let's continue this discussion.
Yes.
The issue that you're talking about how they relate with other movements such as the EFF, and you can throw in the Black First, Land First.
Absolutely.
Because you can see the positioning, that it seeks to be a positioning that says we speak for the black marginalized majority who continue to live in abject poverty and squalor in an economy that is not transforming. We don't even have one black-owned bank, and the one that was there has been allowed to fail without any intervention. Is there space, though, for another movement to champion the same issues?
Well, I think this is going to be the crux of the matter. I think they, like I said, are banking on a weak, divided ANC where many of its members will not campaign for the organization, and they're hoping to get seats through that in the provinces and hoping to be part of the provincial government. As you know, if you look at the budget, the provinces get the largest tranche of cash, and it is the provincial networks of patronage that was actually the backbone of the state capture project as we saw it under President Jacob Zuma. And people like Mzwanele Manyi, Claudia Muan, they know all about it because they were at institutions that were effectively bankrupted as a consequence of this political project, which was in the African National Congress under the leadership of President Jacob Zuma. And that's why it was so interesting and strategic that President Cyril Ramaphosa placed former President Zuma yesterday on the same platform with him, saying, I'm going to give him tasks like all the other presidents. And he ring-fenced for now President Jacob Zuma, because he has, of course, been speaking to people.
Is that how you read it, Karen?
That is how I read it.
Because a lot of people were questioning, people were, I saw a sort of a reading that said something to the effect that Ramaphosa is so under pressure in KwaZulu-Natal that he realizes that, for him to be able to maneuver, he basically needs this man next to him. The number of times President Cyril Ramaphosa of the ANC acknowledged former President Jacob Zuma was actually astounding, including right at the end, saying, promising that we won't let you down in terms of how we lead this ANC.
Absolutely.
So your reading
no,
is
my reading is that he did with former President Zuma what he did when he was going to sack him. When the NEC was actually saying to him to sack, he said, we will not humiliate him. He remains a member of the African National Congress, and we will speak with him. And, it went on and on and on. But when the crux of the matter came, when President Jacob Zuma threw that last tantrum him saying, why must I leave? I haven't been told to leave. The party's operational structures were instructed to vote with an EFF motion to remove him from power. President Cyril Ramaphosa is a very wily politician. He keeps his friends close, but his enemies even closer. President Jacob Zuma was effectively ring-fenced on that stage, as far as I'm concerned. If he now speaks on issues that is at odds with the party position, he can be held accountable. You know, one of the major charges that an ANC member can face is causing division in an organization. And if you cause division in the toughest election that the governing party has faced since 1994, you face possible expulsion. And then, of course, President Jacob Zuma's situation is not made easier by the fact that he has to pay his own legal bills. He has legal woes from here till Timbuktu. And, of course, he still has to go before the State Capture Commission.
Yeah.
So I thought that Cyril Ramaphosa was actually quite tactical and very strategic.
In a moment, you and I will talk about the aesthetics of having former President Jacob Zuma sitting right there at the top table with the leadership, because, of course, I mean, he is an ordinary member of the ANC and ex-officio member of the ANC National Executive Committee by virtue of him having been president of the ANC. But you don't see that often, that you see a former leader sitting at the top table. But I'm wary of us running out of time. So let me ask you about the ANC Youth League.
Yes.
We're going into an election year where, you know, in the heydays of the ANC Youth League, this is the organization that would have been hitting the ground running. All that door-to-door campaigning, all those energetic rallies, the exciting campaigns that, would have been waged on various issues that affect young people, including pushing the ANC itself towards being more representative of young people. But as you and I speak today, there's this song that says, if Oliver Tambo were to see us in this state, he would weep.
Yes.
And I suppose some could adapt it to say, if Peter Mugaba were to see the ANC Youth League in this state, he would weep.
You know, the funny thing about the African National Congress leagues is they were the traditional kingmakers in the ANC succession planning and battles and contestations. But they have been replaced by the provincial barons from the provinces, as we saw in the lead up to Nasrec. And part of the reason is that President Zuma actually, in many ways, weakened both the ANC Youth League, COSATU, the South African Communist Party, and built an ANC in his image to finish his political project, which was, in fact, state capture. So the Youth League didn't really exist in real terms. They existed insofar as they did the bidding of President Zuma.
All right.